Okay, welcome everyone. Good evening, or perhaps it's good afternoon, depending where you've joined this webinar from. My name is Professor Tim Campbell. I'm a visiting professor of international management at the University of Northampton, and I'm just going to take you through the Northampton Doctorate of Business Administration program. So how I'd like to do that is just spend about 15 minutes just giving you a presentation about some of the key points of the program. And then after that, I'll take any questions that you've got. So let's get going. Let's start with Northampton. Some of you may not even know where it is. So in this slide, I've just given a big arrow which points to the town of Northampton, which is of course in England and the UK. It's about 100 kilometres north of London, about an hour by train, and it's an old historic town that's been around for an awfully long time. Thousands of years the settlements date back to, in fact, and it appears throughout this English history for a long period of time. And in the town of Northampton, you will find the University of Northampton. Now, it used to be just on the outside of the town, on a rural site, but they've just built a brand new campus with spent $500 million US that opened just in September last year. And here's a part of it. In fact, if I go back to my front slide, there's me standing outside of a part of it. And that was October last year. So they built an entirely new campus right in the middle of the town now. And it's very, very nice indeed. So that's where you'll find the university in the town of Northampton in the UK. And this slide here, by the way, is that on the left is obviously what's called the Senate building. And on a floor of this building is the postgraduate research space. And that's a photo I've taken on the right there. And you can just see a little bit of it. But that there is for all postgraduate research students. So if you're on the DBA and you want to go to campus, you can do some work, that's where you can go. And they've got all the facilities you need to actually go and sit there and stay for as long as you like and actually work on campus. And that's in the Senate building. So lovely campus they've got there. The university itself, just a few highlights of the university, I suppose. It's just starting from the top. It's been nominated the Times Higher Education Outstanding Business School of the Year 3 years in a row. And only 6 of the more than well over 100 business schools in the UK are nominated. So it managed that 3 years in a row, which is very good. It's also recently been England's #1 university for employability, meaning the percentage of students that once they graduate who actually get work or go into further study, that percentage has been the highest of any other university in the UK. And they got that award quite recently. And that's a good measure that employers value the degrees from Northampton. It's also recently been #1 university in the UK for value-added education. That's a measure of teaching quality. It is, of course, awarded its Royal Charter. In the UK, to be called a British university, to be able to award degrees, you must have your Royal Charter. So the University of Northampton, of course, does. And just the other highlight I thought was worthwhile pointing out is that it is globally recognised. It runs its programs not only on this brand new campus, but all around the world. And that means there's students, alumni, the brand itself is becoming known not just in the UK, but around the world. And that's good when you study, particularly for distance learning students. So that's just a few highlights of the university, if you like. What we're really here to talk about, what you're here for, is this Doctor of Business Administration program. Now, the most common question that I always get when I'm talking about this, and usually the very first question, what is a DBA? And how is a DBA different from a PhD? So let me tackle that one first. So the first question, what is a doctorate? A doctorate degree is considered, or sometimes called, a terminal degree. And that means it's the highest degree that you can attain. There's some very minor exceptions to that. There are some very small postdoctoral degrees, but the vast majority, this is the highest degree that you can attain. That's what a doctorate is. So it's achieving the highest level of taught programs that you can, or the highest award that you can. And doctorates have been around for hundreds of years. They date right back to medieval times in universities. And over the years, what they are and what they mean has changed over time and place. But what we have now is basically two types of doctorates. We have research doctorates and professional doctorates. Now let me take professional doctorates first. These are doctorates, or these terminal degrees, that people who are in a particular profession will do. So I'm sure the most obvious one that will come to your mind is when something's wrong with you, you go and see a medical doctor. And they're an MD, a Doctor of Medicine. That's a professional doctorate for people in the medical field. But there's actually professional doctorates for people in pretty much every field. There's the DEng, which is a Doctor of Engineering. There's the DPharm, which is a Doctor of Pharmacy for pharmacists. Education, there's a Doctor of Education for those who work in education. And of course, in the business and management profession, there's the Doctorate of Business Administration. So these are what we call professional doctorates, because these people, it's targeted towards people who work in these professions. The other type of doctorate is for those who are predominantly researchers. So these people you'll find in university or government institutions that do some type of research or wherever. But predominantly, they're not in a profession, they're in a research environment. And the degree that you'll most associate with a research doctorate is a PhD, a Doctorate of Philosophy. So they're actually very similar. Firstly, they're academically equivalent. In the UK qualifications framework, we call it level 8. So they're both exactly the same level. And they are both actually research degrees. So whether you did a research doctorate or a professional doctorate, there'll be a big, certainly in the DBA, there's a big element of that is doing one big research project. But the outcomes are different. In a DBA, the outcome needs to be practical, something that will change business and management practice. A PhD in business and management could be purely theoretical. It could have no real implications for the immediate practical output for the business world. So it's really the outcomes are different. The degrees themselves are actually quite similar. And they both confer upon the bearer the title Doctor. So once you complete a doctorate degree, you can use the title Doctor, of course. And just one last word on this, because I think it's a nice, just a nice summary of what the difference is. I know it's a bit wordy, so I'll read through it, but it's actually just some quotes I got from allbusinessschools.com. But I think it's quite a good quote that just, as I say, just sort of accentuates the similarities and differences. So let's start at the top there with PhD programs. PhD programs in business focus intensively on preparing candidates to conduct highly specialized scholarly research. They focus on the development of new theory in management, economics, and related fields. Most PhD in business administration graduates lead to careers as university researchers and professors or as senior researchers in business and government. So you see what I mean by the research focus of the PhD. On that bottom quote, DBAs, Doctor of Business Administration programs, focus on the application of theory rather than on the development of new theories. While also intended to prepare graduates for academic careers, the Doctor of Business Administration, by virtue of its focus on the application of theory, has more practical application in managerial settings than a PhD. So you see the difference. DBAs, people will primarily still be involved in the business and management profession, but want to move to the very highest levels or perhaps a consultancy role or something like that. PhD people are usually found within universities. But that's not a cut and dry rule. I've worked with plenty of people at universities who have a DBA, and I know there are plenty of people in industry who have PhDs. So this is just the general rule of thumb. It doesn't mean if you do a DBA you can't work in universities, you certainly can. And it doesn't mean if you have a PhD, you can't work in industry, because again, you can. It's just that the focus is different for these two things. Okay, let's move on then. That's the difference between the two. What sort of things do people study? So here's just some topics that we've had from students in this region. And you'll see it's a whole range of different things. Transformational leadership in UAE healthcare, applying systems thinking in a large construction firm, The effectiveness of banking, anti-money laundering practices. That was a Saudi student. This was a marketing one. Price elasticity and consumer behavior, a case study. This was an analysis of talent management in a KSA firm. Organizational culture in private and public sector firms. That was an Omani student. And IT's role in business transformation. So that's just a selection of some of the topics that people do in the DBA. You have a search on the internet and you're going to find how many different topics there are. It can be anything business and management in any of the main fields. It can be general management, strategy, accounting, finance, entrepreneurship, business ethics, whatever. Anything as long as it's in business and management. The program itself, the first thing to check on this slide, the start date. The very first workshop for our next intake, our 7th intake, will be on June the 20th to the 22nd. So it's normally in May, but we've just moved it a bit further because of, so it's after Ramadan. So that will be when the workshop takes place. But please be aware that's the workshop. The application process takes time. So you must get those applications in now, because as I'm going to talk about a bit later, there's the proposal to do, you've got to have the interview. If they may not like your proposal to begin with, so it may get sent back and you have to change it and send it back again. My point being, it all takes time. So get those applications in as soon as possible. This is when the program starts, the first workshop on that date in June. And in that first workshop, you do principles of research. And then for the first 2 years, you will make your way down and do each of those modules. So there's 7 workshops over 10 years. 10 years? Not that long, I'm afraid. Couldn't give you that long. 2 years, rather. And they're about 2 or 3 months apart. So your principles research in June, about 2 or 3 months later, you'll come back, you'll do your next module, then you'll do your next, and so on. So those first 2 years are completely geared to give you the skills to be able to do your thesis, which is the next 2 years. That's when you do your thesis and you're supervised with that. So it's a 2+2 module. 2 years taught, all the skills that you need to do your thesis, then 2 years to actually do it. When I say thesis, I just mean a big research project. And if you want the timetable for this, by the way, if you don't have the exact dates, your academic consultant at Stafford will give them to you. So get on to them, because the full timetable is all there. What sort of assessment do you get during the taught modules? There's all different types of things. They can be an essay, it could be a presentation, it could be a portfolio of work, a research report, a reflector report. You'll do another big research proposal, and there's even a practice viva voce. So all sorts of different assessment methods, and it depends on the module. And of course, the module tutors will let you know exactly what it is and what they expect. Then once you do your 2 years thesis, you have to put together a 40,000 word document, a thesis, and then you'll have a viva voce examination at Northampton. Viva voce, by the way, it's a Latin term. It simply means an oral examination. So you sit in a room with a person from internal at the University of Northampton. Then there'll also be what we call an external. That'll be somebody from a different university to make sure, of course, we can't just have people from the University of Northampton. The standards need to be the same across all British universities. So you'll also have an external from a different university, and you'll have to defend your thesis. They'll read it, they'll question you about it, and you need to defend that in that oral examination. Lots of support, and I put on here with the sorts of support that you get for the program. There's the International DBA Programme Leader. That's a lady called Angela, who you will see in the interview. She does all the interviews for the applications. There's the local DBA Programme Leader, which is a role I take. I'm here in the UAE, by the way. Every module has its own specialist tutor, of course. Then when you get to the thesis stage, you have a director of study and 2 supervisors. One will come from the university, and then there'll be one what we call a local supervisor, and that person will be somebody who has worked in the region, may still live in the region, but that person has a lot of local knowledge. So we call it somebody from Northampton, then somebody who has some local knowledge to help you contextualize your research. So 2 supervisors. There's lots of the administration at the university, of course, and if you can't find what you're looking for at the university, we can help you out here to find that. NILE is the Northampton Integrated Learning Environment. That's a VLE, a virtual learning environment. That's where we post, every module has its own site where we post videos, lecture slides, assignments, everything you need. It's basically a little website that you have for every module. So that's your online support. And the university has a very extensive online library, thousands and thousands, in fact hundreds of thousands of different journal articles, ebooks, everything you need, all that you access electronically. So plenty of support. Just a little bit, a word about entry requirements and proposals and things. So entry requirements are fairly standard for a doctoral level. You need to hold a master's degree in a business-related subject, ideally completed within the last 10 years. But if it's been longer than that, as long as you can show that you've been doing some professional courses or something, or some training at work, at least in some way you're keeping your knowledge up to date, then that's usually okay. You need to have a minimum of 5 years work experience, at least some of which should be at a senior level. And you should be employed in a position capable of supporting the achievement of the program's learning outcomes. So you need to be, because I mentioned DBAs are applied things. They're applied to the workplace, to the industry. You do need to be working in a position where you can actually apply these concepts, and then so you can do the assignments and things like that. And most people do their thesis often either in their own organization or in their own industry. They will tend to do their thesis on that. Okay, application documents. Now the CV, personal statement, references, degrees are all pretty standard stuff. But I just want to mention something about the interview and proposal. You will have to go through an interview that will be with the DBA program leader, Angela, as I mentioned, and also one other person who will be a specialist in the field that you're doing. So if it's strategy, it'll be a strategy person. If it's HRM, a HRM person, whatever. And they're going to ask you about any of these application documents, but they're particularly going to ask you about that research proposal. And they're going to wonder about how you're going to do this research, why you've chosen this research, why you think it's important, what practical contribution it's going to make, all of these sorts of questions. So that means you need to spend some time on that research proposal. It's only about 1,000 words, and there's a form to do it, but please don't, I see these proposals as they come through and before they're submitted. Some are very good, others, they really look like they've only been written in a couple of hours. It's very important that you do take the time to do these proposals properly. Because as I say, if you want your interview to go well, it needs to be a decent proposal that you've really thought about. But it's also important for you personally as well. Because if you're doing this proposal, really putting some thought into it, then you've already started to think about your DBA journey. So, what sorts of, just a couple of slides on the proposal. Why do universities, why do doctorate programs ask for proposals in the first place? And these are the reasons. They want to know, is the applicant capable of studying at doctoral level? They're not expecting anything brilliant from an application proposal, but you should have some basic skills there. Remember, the DBA is a big step up from a master's. It's a long journey. So they want to know, are you actually capable of completing this journey? They want to know, does the proposed research fit with the nature of the DBA? Of course, is it a business management topic? And is it an applied business and management topic? And the third thing, does the university have an appropriate supervisor? Now, they have supervisors in all the major areas, but if you choose something very technical or very specific, then maybe there won't be a supervisor. So just keep things fairly general is my advice. So as I said, what the team is looking for in the proposal: can it make a practical contribution to business and management? Can you use the Harvard referencing method? Can you write a brief literature review and cite some authors in the field? Only 4 or 5, you don't need too many. But if you're saying that this is a proposal worth, or this is a project worth studying, then you should know some of these authors in the field. You should have read a little bit around it. They'll be looking for, do you have a basic understanding of research methods? And what I put in bold there is all business and management master's graduates should already have these skills. So it shouldn't be too hard for you. As I mentioned before, but make sure you put some thought into it. Do remember to spend some time on it, because it's your proposal and the basis for your interview. Oh, I'm just about done. Fees. Anyway, so I think remember, this is not an online program. It's a part-time taught program with fly-in faculty from the University of Northampton itself. So the program fees for this type of doctorate program, pretty reasonable, I think. Couple of last words from me. Why you should do a DBA at Northampton? Remember, it's an investment in your future, both in the academic and professional fields. It's the highest qualification you can gain. You get to contribute to business and management practice. It would be expected that your thesis is published. There's lots of support, and then you've got those face-to-face workshops from excellent teachers. The feedback from the workshops from the students is always fantastic. From me, completion of the Northampton DBA will set you apart as an expert able to lead and manage at the highest levels. You'll have made a unique contribution to your field and developed outstanding analytical, critical, creative, and reflective skills so needed in today's world. So that's why you should do the DBA from me. Right, that's enough of the formal stuff. And, oh, I'm a little bit longer than I should have been, but never mind. Let's get to those questions. I can see I've got a very nice big group of you, which is fantastic. So for questions, the easiest way, I think, is if you use your question box on the right there. And then I'll go through them one by one. And I can see lots and lots of questions already. Hang on, let me just open my thing here. There we go. Right, my first question, is there an accelerated route to this program? No, it's going to take you 4 years. Now, the first 2 years, as I mentioned, are taught with workshops and set hand-in dates for your assignment. So that can't be shortened or lengthened, unless, of course, there's some circumstances, health issues, or something happens and you need to suspend. That's fine. But essentially, you follow along for those 2 years. When you get to your thesis, you could theoretically do it shorter than 2 years if you're really good, and that would be great. So I suppose you could do it a bit shorter in that stage. But my advice is, once you get on the program, you need that time. You need the 4 years. You know, you don't want to rush things. You want to get to the end of it and do a good job. My next question is, what if I could not complete the modules for any reason? I want to pause till the circumstances sorted. Oh yeah, so I just, as I sort of mentioned a minute ago, Yusuf, that's fine. The university has policies, you know, it's a long period of time, and we understand that something can happen. It can be health issues, it could be work issues, it could be family, it could be whatever else. You know, you've got all these balls in the air that you're trying to juggle. So if you need to take a break, you fill in a study break form, and you can take a break and rejoin when you can. What is the duration of each module? Ask your academic consultant at Stafford for the timetable, and you'll see exactly when the workshop is and exactly when the assignments are due. So you'll see it's about 2 or 3 months to do a module. 3 days face-to-face, and about 2 or 3 months later is when you have all your assignments and things handed in, and you move to the next module. If I cannot attend a particular workshop in the UAE, will I be penalised in any way? You won't be penalised, but it's so important to make these workshops. They are an integral part of the program. Now, if something happens, and we have had people who perhaps for reason haven't got a visa or for some reason haven't been able to make the workshop, If that happens once, okay, that's fine. Everything will be on the Nile site and your tutor will do their very best to catch you up. But if it's going to happen for all of the modules, it wouldn't work. You would get too far behind. But if it happens for 1 or 2 modules, okay, these things happen and the tutor will catch you up. And Mahmood saying, I completed my master's degree about 13 years ago, but have extensive senior managerial experience. Will I be able to apply for the program? Yeah, that would be fine. As I mentioned in the presentation, if your degree is longer than 10 years, they'll be just be looking that you've done some sort of courses, something you might have done through work or some sort of professional training, just to keep your skills up to date. So that should normally be fine. The next is, can I have a list of areas that the university can supervise? That's quite an easy one. Anything business and management. Strategy, marketing, HRM, entrepreneurship, operations, business ethics, corporate social responsibility, anything business and management. You'll be fine. As I mentioned, just don't make it very technical, like a very technical quality system or something very specialized. As long as it fits within one of those fields, there'll be somebody. Can I change the topic of my research, which is different than what I proposed? Yeah, absolutely, and you probably will. Most people will stay more or less within the same field, but the proposal you put in at your application stage is just going to be a general, very basic type of a thing that it's going to be looked at for the reasons I mentioned in the presentation. Once you're actually on the program, you're going to develop a much more in-depth proposal, and sure, it's probably going to change. In fact, it's very likely it's going to change from what you actually initially wanted to do, and that's fine. After the talk modules are complete, can I do the rest of the program on the campus in the UK? If you wanted to, but remember, after the talk modules, there's no more teaching, it's just supervision. But if you wanted to, you could sit in the postgraduate research students area and you could stay there for as long as you like. So no problem at all. Oh, right, where was I? Here we are. Do I need to purchase any additional study materials such as textbooks? We don't use many textbooks at doctoral level, I'm afraid. It's pretty much all research articles and journal articles. But if there are any textbooks you need, they'll be ebooks, electronic books that you'll access through the library. So no, you don't need to buy anything else, unless you're desperately thinking there's a book that you need, but anything that's part of the course will be included. There's a question about the nature of the interview. Remember what I said about the interview? It's going to be pretty much all about your research proposal. So make sure you know that proposal and you spent some time on it. They'll also ask you about your professional experience and your educational background and things, but the majority is generally the proposal. No additional expenses beside the fees. There's only if you don't live in the UAE, there'll be the flights and accommodation to get here, of course. But the fees cover all of the program itself. I was saying about, can you expand more on the nature of the assessments? Is there a format or word count? As I mentioned in the presentation, they differ a lot. There's essays, there's reports, there's seminar presentations, a whole manner of different things on how to assess them. Although there's no exams, so there's no sitting down and writing for 2 or 3 hours. That doesn't happen. It's all some form of an assignment. But it'll make a lot more sense actually on the program with the tutors teaching you, and you can see what it's about. So it wouldn't help you a great deal at this stage understanding more about the assessments, I don't think. Just bear in mind, it's not exams, it's all assignment based. So essay, report type of thing, presentation, reflective report, whatever. Will I be able to meet my local supervisor during the research stage? Well, your local supervisor may live in this region, and some of them do, for our local, but others of them have worked in the region, have gone back to the UK, because all of our local supervisors also must have UK doctorate degrees. So they're all UK trained. But why we call them local is that they've all had experience here. So they're working here, have worked here, have had students here, have researched here, something. And the important for you guys is that they'll be able to help you so much by understanding the context of your research. So you may or may not be able to meet them face to face, but it's really not important. because I mean, I supervise students and the meetings we have are just over Skype, they're on the telephone. I have one student who lives just down the road from me actually, so I see him face to face. So it just depends, but seeing face to face isn't crucial. Using Skype and using our electronic ways and means are absolutely fine. Where was I? Can someone outside the UAE do the DBA? For example, if living in Africa? Yes, absolutely. As long as you can get here to those workshops, you'll be absolutely welcome on the program. And as I mentioned, there's 7 workshops over 3 years, so it's not too many trips. Does an MPH as a master's degree suffice to apply for the DBA? Yeah, that should be fine. I am in Africa and thought you had distance learning options. No, you have to come to these workshops. It's not an online program. It's distance learning, remember, that's true, because the tutors are of course coming to the UAE, but you do need to attend the workshops. The duration of the whole program is 4 years, start to finish. Next one's about, can I attend any workshops in the UK? You technically can. The program on campus, the DBA program on campus, is exactly the same as what's run here. So you do exactly the same as what they do on campus. The only thing is the timings are different. Their last intake started in March, I believe. So it just means they're going to be on a different, if you know what I mean, your timetable is not going to mirror yours exactly. So you can, but it's just a practical matter of getting the timetables to match up. How will you give the exam? No exams on this, but if you mean the viva voce at the end, that's in Northampton, the oral exam. Yeah, you probably mean that, the oral exam. That's done on campus in Northampton. So that's the only time that you actually need to go on campus. And for the graduation, I hope, as well, once you're finished. Yes, Poncho's saying here, would we accept the MPH, the Masters in Public Health? Yeah. Yeah, but with extensive management experience. Yeah, I think that would be fine. That would be, yeah, we normally say a business and management degree, but as long as you have a lot of experience in business and management, it's normally fine. And I've known MPH holders before to be on DBA programs. So I would definitely say apply. Of course, I don't make the decisions. They do that at Northampton, Angela and her team, but I should think it would be fine. Next question. I stopped my DBA studies at another university. Can I get exemptions for the modules completed? It's not so easy at doctorate level, because to get exemptions, you need to map modules exactly from one university to another, and that tends to be difficult. It's not like MBA programs where if you do one finance and accounting module on one MBA program, change to another university, it's very likely there's going to be a finance and accounting module on that, so they're easy to map. But doctorates are quite different at different universities. So this one, you'd probably have to start from the beginning, but you'd have lots of experience from your other program. Mohammed, I completed my MBA from the University of Northampton. Fantastic. Is there any exemptions for the DBA? No, the DBA is a different level, I'm afraid. It's a big step up from the MBA. So you really would need to be at all those modules. Is the workshops to be held in the UAE only, or is it also held in Northampton? Yeah, as I mentioned, we hold the workshops here in the UAE, but there's also an on-campus intake for the DBA. So they hold these workshops on campus as well for them. But as I mentioned, we follow different timetables, so you can't just switch from one to the other, because your modules would be out of order, if you know what I mean. But theoretically, it would be possible to do a module over there if you wanted to. It's just getting them in the right order. That's the problem. Can the seminar presentation be done virtually? Yes, Nabila, that question. Yeah, that is one of the ways that a module is assessed, and it is done virtually, I believe. I am not sure yet about the topic and field. So can some topics be provided to help and guide us? My advice, Yusuf, Google. DBA projects. That is, go to Google Scholar on Google. You will get hundreds, thousands of different titles of DBA projects that people have done. And that will give you a much better idea. It's very easy to find. You'll find so many different titles what people have done. So that's my advice. It's escaped me. There's a website that I know, but anyway, as long as you just Google Doctorate of Business Administration theses, you'll find websites, you'll find examples. It's all there. Have a look what people are doing. Should the proposal be on a specific topic or select our own? Select your own. And when you're selecting a topic, think about something you're interested in. Think about a project where you can actually collect the data, because you might be interested in motivation at Google. But if you don't actually work for Google, it's pretty unlikely they're going to let you in and study motivation in the organization. So you might think about your own organization, your own industry. Think about networks where friends or family works. But access to data is important, something you're interested in, and a real problem, a real management problem that you can think about. They're generally the three things to think about to decide, but it's very much your choice, very much. Wow, we have got a lot. Where was I? Hang on. Here I am. I'm having a hard time formulating my topic. Can you suggest ways or tips for me to get started? Well, I think I've just answered that one probably. Think about real management problems, access to data, something you're interested in. Now, I remember many years ago when I did my doctorate, what particularly I was interested in at the time was organizational learning. I was interested in learning within organizations, how people learn things. I was particularly interested in whether it was better to teach people individually or as teams. So the whole topic came about really out of my own interest, and then I just started reading a few books about it and reading a few things about it and started to just define my topic a little bit more. So something you're interested in, real management issue. Can I elect my own supervisor when you reach the dissertation stage? No, we'll assign one for you, because we need to make sure the supervisor is relevant, is somebody appropriate for you, and only we would know particularly who that was. However, you can suggest, if it's a teacher you've had during the workshops or somebody that you particularly get along with, I'm more than happy for you to suggest. But the end choice has to be ours to make sure that is the most appropriate supervisor. Everything online, or we need to attend the workshops? You must attend the workshops. Very important. They're a very important part of the program. I have 19 years of work experience and I've just completed my MBA at the University of Northampton. Will that penalise my application? Wilfred, I seem to remember that name. Fantastic. Well done for completing your MBA firstly. Will that penalise my application? Absolutely not. And that will make it absolutely seamless for you, moving from the MBA to the DBA program. Fantastic. There'll be no problem with that. And it also means, of course, you're going to be very aware of the university, you're going to be aware of Nile, you're going to know how to work Nelson and all of these types of things. So it will be a seamless transition. What is the role of Stafford? Yeah, well, that's a good question. Stafford Global is the company that markets and recruits the program for the programs. So all of you would have spoken to one of the very good consultants there at Stafford, who will advise you about all the information about the program, how you the timetables and how it's taught and everything else you need to know. They'll then take your applications form, submit it to the university, all of these types of things. That's the role of Stafford. And it's very important because the University of Northampton, of course, it's very difficult to do this from the UK. So they use Stafford Global here locally to be able to do these things for them. But once you're applied and on the program, you are completely a student of the University of Northampton. So that's important to realise. I am a finance manager. Will the university allow me to research on human resources? Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, most people generally will do their own field. So finance people generally will do something in finance, HRM people generally something in HRM. So you can, but they're going to question how much do you know about human resources. Okay, so it's absolutely fine that you put together a proposal about human resources, but they will ask you exactly that question. How much knowledge, professional knowledge, do you have about human resources? So just be prepared for that. So there's nothing wrong with doing it, but you will be questioned. What is the background of the tutors coming to the UAE to conduct the workshops? They're all professors from the University of Northampton. So a wide variety of different backgrounds, of course. There'll be qualitative people, there'll be quantitative people, professional people, all sorts of different things. But they're all extremely good team that they've got there, extremely good doctoral teaching team they've got there at Northampton, and they do a very good job. Oh, I think I've done it. How about that? Yeah, not bad. Hang on, one more from Mohammed. Can we select new automations, i.e. blockchain or AI? Oh, absolutely, yeah. I was just reading about blockchain and education and something today, actually. I can't remember what it was. But yes, please, entrepreneurship, innovations, they would be great topics. As I said, just don't make it something very, very specific that very few people know about, because that becomes hard to supervise. But innovations like AI and blockchain, no problem with that. Our question, is there any way to talk to previous students for support? Please ask your academic consultant at Stafford, because obviously we can't just give out student details, but your consultant can ask one of the students if it would be okay for them to be approached by you. So please do ask your academic consultant at Stafford. Okay, I think I've done it this time. But anyway, there's my email address. So if anything occurs to you and my phone number, let me know. But I think that's everything for today. I hope to see you all on the program. I will be there at the very first workshop in June. So as I say, I really hope to see you all, meet you face to face. If you have any questions about proposals and particular academic issues, give me an email or give me a phone, and that'll be absolutely fine. But for now, thanks for listening. Have a good evening, everyone. Bye for now.